Hello, I'm Monica Reinagel. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Nutrition Diva podcast. Many of you have asked for an episode on foods and herbs that can increase breast milk supply. This is something that a lot of new moms worry about. In fact, it's the primary reason that women give for stopping breastfeeding. Unfortunately, this worry or the perception that the milk supply is inadequate may be a lot more common than the actual problem. Nonetheless, this concern leads a lot of women to look for things that might help increase their milk production. And of course, they will quickly find lots of things on the internet. But is there any evidence to support these things that are traditionally claimed to help? How about some of these supplements that are specifically formulated to increase breast milk production? Well, first, we need to clear up a couple of myths. Number one, rest assured that breast size does not affect milk production. So if you have small breasts and you're nursing, there's no need to worry. You are able to produce plenty of milk for your baby. And speaking of baby, a lot actually depends on the baby. Milk synthesis is related to how vigorously the infant nurses, how much time the infant spends nursing, and how many times per day the infant nurses. In other words, if you have a baby that spends several hours a day nursing and drinks a lot of milk, you will probably produce more milk. Conversely, a baby that only nurses for a couple of minutes a few times a day and doesn't drink a lot of milk won't stimulate a lot of milk production in the mother. And finally, you should know that drinking a ton of water will not increase your milk supply. Now, if you're severely dehydrated, that could impact the amount of milk you're able to produce. But drinking fluids above and beyond just what it takes to quench your thirst is not going to help you produce more milk. So much for the myths, but is there anything that you can eat or take that will help increase milk production? And now let's talk about galactologs. That's the technical term for things that promote a mother's milk supply. There are a handful of herbs that have been traditionally used as galactologs, and they include fenugreek, blessed thistle, milk thistle, goat's rue, and fennel. And these are usually used either in capsule form or as a tea. And sales of these products are on the rise. And yet, even though they've been used for thousands of years, it's hard to say how much these herbs are actually doing. Last year, researchers from Tulane University did a painstaking review of the evidence, such as it is, on herbal galactologs in an effort to answer this question more definitively. They found only a handful of studies in the literature, and the quality and the design varied pretty widely, as did the results. There were encouraging but inconclusive findings on fenugreek, milk thistle, shatavari or asparagus root, and moringa. And for some of the others, there simply wasn't any research to review. I realize this isn't very satisfying, but there's just not enough evidence to say for sure how much these herbal products might help increase milk production. But there's also not enough to say for sure that they don't do anything. As the saying goes, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The good news is they appear to be safe and well tolerated, causing a minimum of adverse effects for mom or baby. If you're worried about not producing enough breast milk for your baby and drinking some fenugreek tea or taking one of the herbal supplements helps calm your anxiety, perhaps it's worth it. There's nothing wrong with a good placebo response. But it might even be more helpful to work with a lactation consultant. Making sure your baby is nursing well and often is probably the most important influence on your breast milk production. Don't forget that eating lots of vegetables while you're breastfeeding may increase your baby's love of vegetables later on. I have another podcast episode with additional nutrition tips for breastfeeding moms that you might want to check out. But sometimes, despite everyone's best efforts, breastfeeding doesn't work out, or it's just not sufficient on its own. And I also have an article with tips on what to look for when choosing a baby formula. You'll find links to both of those articles, as well as to the research that I reviewed in today's show in our transcript, which is at nutritiondiva.quickanddirtytips.com. Special thanks to Anna Giampetro, RDN, for her help in researching today's topic, and thanks to you for listening. Have a great week.